The cart comes down your street before sunrise and the man pulling it does not knock. He just reads the doors, looking for the fresh red cross the watchmen paint at night. And when he finds yours, he stops and waits for you to bring out whoever did not survive the dark. You have watched this cart pass for a week now, and you have done the math. The smart move, the obvious move, is to leave, to take the north road out of the city while your legs still work and the gates are still open. Almost everyone alive in 1348 reached the same conclusion. They ran, and running is the part of this story that nobody expects. So when was the real moment it became too late? The door that swung shut hours before anyone even noticed it was gone. So here is the question that decided who lived. Not how do you beat the plague, because nobody beat it. The question was simpler and crueler than that. When exactly did the door close? When did the one moment to act quietly pass, hours before anyone even noticed it was gone? To answer that, you have to walk through a single town the way the disease walked through it, week by week, because the people who survived the deadliest year in human history did not survive by being brave, or strong, or faithful. They survived because they understood the clock, and almost no one heard it ticking until it had already run out. It starts as a story, not a sickness. Months before anything reaches the town, the disease is already loose far to the east. At a place called Kaffa, on the edge of the Black Sea, an army is laying siege to a trading port, and inside that army men are dying by the hundreds, swollen and black. So the attackers do something almost beyond belief. They load their own dead onto catapults and hurl the rotting bodies over the city walls, into the streets of the people they want to kill. It works better than any weapon they own. The merchants trapped inside flee by ship, west toward home, carrying the thing that was thrown at them. This is how it always moves. It does not march. It hitches a ride. A merchant ship limps into a port 200 miles south of your town, and the men who row out to meet it find most of the crew already dead. The harbor master orders the ship back out to sea. He is far too late. The fleas have already gone ashore on the rats, and the rats have already gone into the grain. In the town, none of this is visible yet. The market is full. Children play in the square. A traveler arrives with a strange story about a city down the coast where the church bells stopped ringing because there was no one left to ring them. People listen and shiver and go back to their bread. The clock has started. Nobody can hear it. Then the first body, a wool dyer, healthy on Monday, dead by Friday, his neck and groin swollen into black lumps the size of eggs. The town physician comes to examine him, and the physician has read every text the age can offer. He blames the air. A poison cloud, he says, rolling off the marshes and the rotting filth in the gutters. And the cure is to burn sweet herbs and keep the shutters closed against the bad wind. It is the finest medicine money can buy. It is completely useless, because the danger was never in the air. It is in the floorboards, in the granary, in the very cloth the dyer was working when he fell. Within days, there are 10 bodies. Then, 40. The disease moves faster than the news of it, faster than the priests can bury anyone. A man can feel fine at breakfast and be cold by the next morning, 3 days at the very most. And as the count climbs, the town begins to come apart in a way the sickness alone cannot explain. Doors are barred from the inside. Neighbors stop speaking across the street. Some lock their own infected children away. Others decide that the dying is a punishment, and go looking for someone to blame, and find it in strangers and outsiders, and the people they already feared. Order does not end with a bang. It thins, quietly, like everything else. And then the town does the one thing that has ever felt safe when something is coming to kill you. It decides to run, and this is exactly where you would run to. Of course you would. Every instinct you have, every instinct anyone has ever had, says the same simple thing. When death is in this place, the answer is to be in another place. So picture the road north out of the town. By the second week of the sickness, it is crowded. Whole families, carts piled high with everything they own. The rich up on horseback, the poor down in the mud, all of them moving away from the dying and towards somewhere they imagine is still clean. It looks like salvation. It looks like the smart ones getting out while they still can. Now ask the one question that almost none of them stop to ask. Where exactly do they think they are going? And what exactly are they carrying with them down that road? Here's what the people on that road did not know, and could not have known. The plague has a quiet window. Days when a person already carries it and feels nothing at all. No fever, no lumps, no warning, while the thing inside them is already looking for its next host. So the crowd fleeing north was not running away from the disease. The crowd was the disease, walking on 2 legs, laying itself down on every road and in every inn and at every well it touched. This is not a guess. It is the entire shape of how the Black Death conquered a continent. It rode the people who ran. When survivors fled one stricken city by ship, the sickness appeared in the next port within days. When people fled the south of England, they carried it inland into Wales, where it killed 100,000 who never once saw a death ship. In Egypt, the country people fled into the cities for safety, while the city people fled into the country for the very same reason, and they passed each other on the road, and both directions died. So, the safe place was never somewhere you could run to. There was no clean town waiting at the end of the road, and the running itself was what made certain of that. The few places that came through almost untouched did the exact opposite thing. They closed. The towns that sealed their gates early, that let no one in and no one out, that stopped the road instead of taking it, those were the ones where the bells were still ringing in the spring. And the word we still use for it was born from this exact horror. When the city of Venice began forcing every arriving ship to sit at anchor, cut off, before a single soul could step ashore, they fixed the waiting time at 40 days. 40 giorni. Quarantine. The only thing that ever truly worked was the thing that felt unbearable, that felt like surrender. Staying still, shutting the door. Which brings us back to your street, and the cart, and the red cross drying on your own door. The moment to act was never the morning you finally decided to leave. It was weeks before that, the day the traveler told his story about the silent bells, and the whole market listened and shivered, and went back to its bread. That was the door, swinging shut while everyone watched and no one moved. By the time the cart was actually on your street, every single road out was already carrying the same thing you were trying to outrun. The people who opened their eyes the next spring were not the ones who ran the hardest. History remembers the plague as one great act of fleeing, but the survivors were mostly the ones who did the unbearable thing instead. Who stayed, who closed the door, and waited out the 40 days, while the whole world begged them to run. The cart still comes at dawn. The only real question was always how early you were willing to stop moving.